In a nutshell, I want to really talk about why do we have so many books now, and yet we see reading decline, and is there a correlation between that? Well, hello. Today's video is something that's been brewing for a little while in me as I've been reading new books, as I've been listening to audiobooks, as I've been seeing other content creators coming out with reviews about these new books that are coming out or have come out, and they get advanced copies and they get these special editions that come in, and some of them like broken binding where they cost so much but they're beautiful, and there's this feeling of FOMO that comes in as a very part-time content creator here talking about books and themes and authors, that sometimes you have that sense of FOMO that, am I missing something amazing? And then you realize how many books and how many works are being created. Maybe I'm alone in this feeling, but at times it feels like I'm fighting an avalanche to make it through and into new books and into new authors, and these reviews are happening over here. I don't want to watch these content reviews because I don't want anything to be spoiled or to tarnish my view as I read these new books, and it feels almost daunting. And as I've taken a step back from having that view and thinking, what am I reading? Why am I reading it? It gives me a sense of calm, be able to just enjoy what I am reading. But I also want to have a little discussion about what has changed in books and in the book community, because we all as readers, we want to read for a variety of reasons, but for the most part, I believe we wanted to have a sense of escapism. We want to have a sense of being able to process the real world through fantasy, through sci-fi, through historical fiction, through real nonfiction with historical events or counseling books or something that helps us to be able to process. There's such a wide variety of books that are out there that we all read for different reasons. For me as a history teacher, I see historical themes play out over and over through sci-fi and fantasy, that I eventually maybe want to have a video breaking down some of the things as a history teacher that I see play out really well in fantasy, and some of the examples for that. Maybe if you're interested in that, let me know some things you'd be interested about. But for me, as I step back from seeing all the books that other people read and the rave reviews for things like maybe like a Sun Eater series that I really want to get into, but it's almost daunting because there's such rave reviews about it. There's maybe a sense of, for me, I fight going with the trends. It's like, everyone's reviewing this. I don't want to do that. But then that's what gets views. There's all sorts of things that pull your attention as a content creator. And again, I'm very part-time with 480 subscribers or whatever. But for me, I just want to break down a few things that I've noticed, especially with the expansion of BookTube, BookTalk, BookGram, all the different ways in which people engage with works. There's many videos that highlight some of the inauthenticity that comes in some of the platforms when people are reviewing books that you're like, did you even review that book? Did you even read that book? I don't know. It's one of those things. But I had some research just to see about what has changed in the last few years and few decades about books. When thinking about publishing, as I think about this, there's so many books that have come out and so many ideas, and I'm like, there's so many new books, and that is true because every year from traditional publishing, there's an estimated 500,000 to 1 million books that are published. Through independent and self-publishing in 2021 alone, there were 2.3 million self-published works. Example of that would be like The Rage of Dragons, which is an amazing series by Evan Winters that I absolutely love. It has its weaknesses, but it was fully engaging and captivating in its scope. And so you see this rise and increase of independent and self-publishing, especially during COVID when people had sometimes nothing else to do. They said, going to write a book. And that has been very successful for many people. I started writing several books, and for work and just different things I have, and I'm still working slowly on certain things I want to get published. I pretty much guarantee not to sell a bunch of books, but I just want to complete it and get it done. And it gives hope that there is so many books that are self-published. But at the same time, we see some of that quality dip maybe at times, but hopefully with more independent publishing, more independent reviewers, there's more ways of being able to fine tune and get better products that are not limited to the traditional publishing route. In the last 16 years, there's been a 10-fold increase, 1,000% increase in independent publishing. There's more publishers, there are more online options. There's more stories that are out there. There's more ways of approaching stories, right? It doesn't have to be a Brandon Sanderson embracing mental health and embracing these complex characters and what they go through. You could just be approaching a historic topic in a new way with a Sword of Kaigan or a Blood over Brighthaven or the Green Bone Saga by Fonda Lee. These are all different ways of interpreting and creating new worlds and new stories, which is amazing that we see through independent and traditional publishing as well. So that's been amazing to be able to see this increase of work. Now, something that limits reading at times is the cost of publishing. Now, in 2019, the average cost of a book in America was $15.55. Okay, this is America. I don't know internationally what that is, but in America. In 2025, the average is $20.28. That is an increase of just over $4.75, something around there, which per book, that is actually a huge jump in only 6 years. That limits. Now, does that mean that books are bigger? We know that books are getting longer, right? That's not always bad, but sometimes you just want to pick up a 300-page good self-contained story that doesn't take you 2 weeks to finish, right? You can finish it in a weekend, or if you're really dedicated, maybe a day, but that depends on your reading speed and what you're into. Now, with those longer books, that increases the price, as we know. We have, with Broken Binding and other more specialized printings, which are amazing and beautiful, we see the cost go up. So it'd be interesting to see all the metrics that go into the cost of books, whether it is a per page average or if it's just the average cost of books that go up. What I do love is that there are more alternatives now out there. Your libraries are expanding. You have online things like I use Libby for a lot of books because as a father of two who's in education, I don't have the money to go out and buy $300, $400 of books every single month or something. I know people don't go out and do that. Some people can if they have the money to, and that sounds amazing. Dream library would be, anyways. But Libby and alternatives, going to used bookstores, going to yard sales. I've found some amazing books for very cheap at those types of things, which is really interesting to do. Now, with the rise of AI, that's always going to be a concern, as we know. Many authors have been caught recently using AI, and I really hope that the rise of AI does create some safeguards to be able to know this is an AI-generated book. I think there's a difference between AI writing a book for you and using AI to help you to fine-tune. That is something completely different. But if you're using AI to write anything and it's not your words, as AI gets better, I don't want a formulaic approach to writing books. I want the human creativity to come into it. And I think the art should always be celebrated and championed, especially in a world that is getting further mechanized and further automated. The human expression through music, through writing, through art should always be celebrated. And maybe it's not going to be the work itself that's created, but the process of that work being created, like a painting. It's not just a painting. AI can imitate a painting, but the process of making it. I like to watch groups like Nerdforge and the creations that they do, and there's a story behind what's created. Maybe authorship and writing is going to go that way, but I'm hoping that AI doesn't impact things at all. As a teacher, I am concerned about the lack of reading and curiosity and finding new avenues of creative thought and expression, and too much reliance on social media. Some facts and statistics is, excuse me, that in America, 19% of Americans don't read at all for pleasure. They only read for what they have to for work, and that is it. There's not a single fiction, nonfiction, fantasy, nothing that is read for pleasure. That is 19%. Another like 11% only reads occasional little books. Only 14% of 13-year-olds read for fun. That is down drastically from a decade ago, where it was about 20%. 14% of 13-year-olds do not read for fun. Now, is that the quality of books that are out there? Is that the distractions of video games and social media? I don't know, but that is a very drastic thing. And in 2022, only 48.5% of Americans read a book a year. That's not just for fun. That is a book. Financial literacy, marriage and family counseling, projects and interests, anything. 48.5% of Americans read only one book a year, and the average American only spends 16 minutes a day in personal interest reading. Now, that probably comes out to like on the weekend, they read, an hour to 2 hours a weekend, maybe something like that, which I get. But when you think about how much time we spend on our phones, that is down from 2003. I know that's 22 years ago, where the average was 22 minutes a day. That is a 23% decrease in personal interest reading. That's not just nonfiction. That's not fiction, nonfiction. That's not personal interest and counseling and communication and motivation and therapy and personal interests and hobbies. Across the board, reading is down. Now, is that because of the rise of social media, which has its benefits? But we all know the studies about the benefits that reading gives you to your brain, to the rest for your brain, that reading before bed is way more restful for you than watching social media, watching a show, playing a game on your mobile phone. Not that those things are bad, but things in moderation. We want our brains to be able to rest. We want to engage in things in a beneficial and positive way, and reading for some reason becomes a chore that people run from. And I go back to the fact that only 14% of 13-year-olds read for fun. And something I think that needs to be incorporated better in schools, and this is from me just as a teacher as well who teaches history, is that there's a difference between reading often and reading well. I feel like students are forced to read often. We try to get them to read well. And maybe those people who only read 60 minutes a day on average, maybe they are reading well. They're really dissecting and diving into these works to be able to grow and benefit. I mean, I know as a content creator, I see these readers who read 100 books in a year, and I really think, did you really dissect that book? Did you really get what the author was trying to accomplish there? Did you skip over block passages that describe emotions and themes that this author is spending all this time to do, and you just jump to the action, jump to the scene, jump to this? I feel like when we read too often instead of reading well, we miss something of the human experience, and we miss something the author is trying to communicate if the author is trying to do it well. These statistics, a lot of them come from the National Endowments of the Arts statistic, which is a government website. So this isn't just things that are just pulled out of the air. These are hard facts that really do shape these conversations of what is drawing people to read. Is there a solution? I don't know if there is. I do love that there is such a plethora of books out there now that I hope that good new works don't get drowned by the flood of AI and quickly produced works that are, we've all read the books that have typos and errors and plot holes and everything that are there, that we miss those books that have something powerful of the human experience that help us to grow and to change and to connect with each other in new, interesting ways, the way that only books can do. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree with these thoughts. If you have anything, comment down below. Just as I've kind of meandered through these topics of thinking through why books have expanded, but why have people engaged less with books? That is something that I am really interested in talking about. So let me know. Have an amazing day. Go read something amazing. God bless. Take care. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.